White people come fucking first, understand that. Then the fucking minorities come.
Hey guys, so welcome back. It's your girl Stelly. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. So guys, in this whole situation shows one of the biggest problem on social media today. People love to act neutral until neutrality stop making the money. A weakness influencer with a massive platform is getting dragged online after refusing to speak about ICE rights and the deaths connected to the law. I hope you understand what I'm saying. On enforcement, his manipulators, his excuses. I am not political, but the internet immediately pulled up old videos where he became extremely emotional and passionate over the death of conservative political figures. Suddenly back then, it was no longer politics, but then it was good version ever. And that's right. That is why people are angry, complaining bitterly. Because you can't spark and choose when humanity matters. You can't cry publicly for one group of people while acting cold and disconnected. When communities are suffering, that is not neutrality. That is selective empathy. And people are tired of it. What makes this situation even worse, the attitude. Instead of simple saying, I don't know enough to speak on this, he's doubled. He's doubled down. He started seconding his identity, saying he's nobody, puppet, and nobody can tell him what to speak about. But here is the problem with that argument. We need to hear more. So let's see this.
Those Protestant Anglo-Saxons convinced the Poles, the Russians, the Jews, the Irish to become white to go against black people. So much so, the Irish gangs in Chicago burned down a Polish neighborhood and then told the Poles that black Americans did it. And the Poles were like, well, we're not white, so why would we fight with you? But over time, when the perceived power of whiteness took hold and the perceived threat of blackness taking over the city, these white people combined forces to be against black people. So you have someone like this man in this video who is most likely Italian, whose grandparents most likely came through Ellis Island, and his grandparents came and they were not considered white, but by the time his mother was born and he was born, he was white. And with that new perceived whiteness and power came the chance to be racist. And if there's one thing we understand in this country, the lower position of power you have and you're white, your only perceived power is racism. You ask any New Yorker about Italians from Staten Island or white people on Long Island, even though we're one of the most democratic progressive cities, there's still a lot of red. That's why, because these people, their whiteness is very new. It's no more than 2 or 3 generations that their whiteness is there. So they hold on to that whiteness. They have to be very protective of it because they were told stories about how they were not white. The more you know.
So the clip that we just watched, just popped out on my For You page, and I listened to this brother. By the way, I'm following him, and I'm gonna tag him, on your screen. Do well, follow him. I love him. I listen to him because I love history.
And my opinion on what happened to Alex Pretty is very simple. The taking of a human life by another human is wrong and evil and directly against what God calls us to do. I don't answer to you. I'm not your puppet. I'm not your mouthpiece, and I'm not going to pander to what an audience thinks I should speak on. You listen, imitator. I think murdering and killing people is wrong, and that is all there is to it. The same thing I said about Charlie Kirk, which some of you are typing right now, but you were so quick to make a video about him because I was shown the video of his unaliving against my will on Instagram while scrolling, and it messed with my head for days. And in order to become properly informed on this, I need to go watch the video of another human life being taken. I'm not going to do that because I believe it rots our soul, and the internet has totally desensitized us from the impact of that. I am praying for Alex. I am praying for his family as they grieve the loss of a loved one. It is a tragedy. It is terrible. And under no circumstances justified. And that is the extent of my opinion. And me being a creator with a large platform, or any of my friends being creators with large platforms, does not thereby give us the obligation of speaking on everything that happens in the world and sharing our opinions on it, and certainly not sharing political alignment. I'm not a political commentator. I'm not incredibly well versed on politics. I'm well versed on what I speak on this platform, and that will never change. And if that decides for you that you need to put me in some box because this is the opinion I gave you, so be it. I answer to God, and God calls us to pray for those who hate us and not to kill each other. And that's the extent of my opinion.
But when Charlie Kirk was murdered, wasn't this you?
This is not about politics. Those are opinions and ideologies. This is very much a battle of good and evil. And there is absolutely evil in the world.
Yikes on bikes. The selective outrage would be crazy if it wasn't coming from someone who looks like his parents are cuslings. I don't... Y'all are really never beating the allegations, because why is your response in one situation, oh, I don't get into politics, but in the other one, it's, oh, this is clearly a battle between good and evil. And here's the thing, I said this before and I'll say it again, I'm not celebrating what happened to Charlie Kirk, because at the end of the day, it's just another example of the gun problem we have in this country. However, I'm also not going to act like what happened to him was not natural and logical consequences. And before y'all try to come at me for saying that, did y'all forget that in the book y'all claim to care about, but in reality only uses a weapon when it's beneficial for y'all? That Sky Daddy said in Matthew 26:52, those who live by the sword will die by the sword. Right. Charlie Kirk spread some of the most hateful and violent rhetoric, and he himself even said he felt like gun deaths were worth it to have the Second Amendment. And when his hate and violence came back like a boomerang and hit him in the neck, y'all were outraged. It was, oh, this isn't about politics. No one deserves to die for their beliefs. However, when people are standing up in the face of hate and using their constitutional rights to do so, and they're murdered for it, now all of a sudden, you don't get into politics. Very interesting use of free will. I'm going to hold your hand with a napkin in between when I say this. The silence and outright refusal to call this bullshit out for what it is louder than you think. And the selective outrage and empathy tells us everything we need to know. Hope this helps. Peace and love. Talk to you later.
So here's my opinion. My opinion is that you don't want my opinion.
Look, I've seen several creators not want to give their opinion about certain things for whatever reason. It's not their lane or whatever, but I just want y'all to know where I stand at. It's always fuck ICE. And the reason why it's fuck ICE is not just because of what they're doing today in 2026, but ICE was built on and formed from the oppression of black people for generations. The church bombing, what the Klan did in this country. They've always worn masks and hoods. They used to just be white and pointy. The Fugitive Slave Act of 1850 used to force black people to carry around their free papers. That way they wouldn't be captured and brought back into bondage. So ICE has always been an entity. It's just went by different names. Know that this country was built on the oppression of people by European Americans, because white wasn't a term at the time. They only started using white so they could just use it as a caste system, so you could visually identify who was good enough to be an American citizen, U.S. citizen, or who was not good enough. It's always been a good old boys club. And I hate to break your heart about the ones that are like me, that are also socioeconomically oppressed, that grew up poor and grew up broke. But this club wasn't built for us neither. We were just supposed to be the foot soldiers to keep white supremacy at the forefront, to keep whiteness at the helm. At least we could be white. And I'm telling you that it's time that we've changed that. We should change that. Us, white folks, white men, white women too, but definitely the white fellas. We are upholding a system that does not benefit us. It does not help. So when you say that ICE is doing a good job, then you're also saying that slavery was a good thing. You're also saying that women should be subjugated to submissive roles in the house and they shouldn't get paid as much. You're also saying you're also saying that billionaires deserve what they have. The rich and the wealthy and the elite, the owning class, deserve where they're at because they're morally just. And I'm telling you that that's an immoral statement. So let's work on that aspect of living, and then we can get somewhere.
I'm not a political commentator. I'm not incredibly well-versed on politics.
I'm so tired of the utter obsession with politics.
Let me adjust the dial on the white translation here. They don't care. They want your money. They want your clicks. They want your follows. I need you guys to just come out and admit you're Republicans, okay? I also need you to come out and just admit that you don't give a fuck when black and brown people die or get kidnapped. And the thing that is so yikes about this is that it's not just that these people are too big of cowards to just come out and admit that they're MAGA while they say they're not political. Oh, I'm not political. Oh, really? Then why were you talking about Charlie Kirk? No, these people didn't even give a fuck when white people died in the form of Alex Preddy or Renee Good, because that's how political they are. Both of these people made videos crying about Charlie Kirk, and then both made videos scolding people in their own audience for asking them to speak about ICE in Minnesota. And good for the people that did call them out in their own audience, but the sad reality is that for the most part, they're not gonna lose followers because their audience doesn't give a fuck either. They either don't give a fuck or they agree. They affirmatively agree with what's happening. I think a lot of times when we talk about racism and white supremacy, we talk about it in like a more outward, aggressive manner, understandably. But what's not talked about enough is just the racism of apathy. Like, so many white people just don't give a fuck. That's why these people are annoyed. They're annoyed that you're asking them to give a fuck. We didn't need to ask them to make videos about Charlie Kirk though, did we?
And I'm just going to shut you up right there because extremely contradictory, right? So back when you wanted to speak on Charlie Kirk, you specifically said yourself, people losing their lives is not political, right? Kids getting killed in schools is not political. But you then say that, oh, a political figure, Charlie Kirk, who I would say by no means was a political figure, died, and that nobody should have to witness their family member get killed online, executed online. Guess what? Alex Preddy had the same exact thing happen to him. And people are asking what your opinion is on it. And all of a sudden now, 5 months later, you have no opinions. Because the person who killed Charlie Kirk was more likely than not one of yours. Because the people who went in and shot people in schools, for the majority, are people that look like you, right? But now that people are denouncing somebody who you likely voted into office's actions, you don't want to speak up on it because it's too political. You're spineless. You're a useless human being if you can't speak up about things that matter. You are a mouthpiece for nobody. You regurgitate bullshit that you've read in books. You keep saying, I have my own original thoughts. I'm my own person. If you can't be a content creator, if you can't be original and speak about things that are impassion you, your platform is so unoriginal. You quote other people. You ramble out about bullshit you know nothing about. It's embarrassing to be able to sit there at your age, damn near 28, I believe, and say that I'm not going to say anything because you don't want me, because I don't want to, when your entire platform is saying shit that you don't really want to say. You say it because it makes you money. I'm sure if health and wellness never took off for you, you would have pivoted, right? But it did. And so that's what you speak about, because people decided, hey, I like that you talk about this, just talk about this. So there's somebody up there with their hands up your ass, puppeting your mouth, right? Nobody's ideas, nobody's thoughts, nobody's actions are original in this world, if we're being 100% honest. Your actions, your thoughts are a product of your environments and the people around you and what you read and etc. So because you don't care enough that other people are getting killed that are directly affected from directly affected by the actions that you and people like you have taken, you're not going to speak on it. It's embarrassing. I do what God tells me to do and what I'm inspired to by God. No, you don't. You do whatever makes you money. Respectfully.
You listen to me because I speak on what I am inspired and convicted to speak on.
So you're not inspired to speak out against what happened? That's an issue, babe. You should be very inspired to condemn that.
And I'm not a political commentator.
You're in the wellness sector and you don't think that's political? Huh.
I think murdering and killing people is wrong. Same thing I said about Charlie Kirk.
There it is. You spoke out about Charlie Kirk, but not this. I'm sure there's a reason for that, right?
Because I was shown the video of his unaliving against my will on Instagram while scrolling, and it messed with my head for days. In order to become properly informed on this, I need to go watch the video of another human life being taken. I'm not gonna do that.
Shit, oh my God. I would argue that this is just as big of a story as what happened to Charlie Kirk. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I saw the video of both Renee Good and what happened to Alex more times than I saw anything about Charlie Kirk. So you're telling me that Charlie Kirk just happened to naturally come across your timeline, but these didn't. Why is your FYP like that? I'm assuming your FYP is like that because you are political, but it shows you one side of politics, right? It shows you the side of politics that would show you that, oh my God, Charlie Kirk, this amazing Christian, was murdered, but it won't show police violence. And I think I know why.
Because I believe it rots our soul, and the internet has totally desensitized us from the impact of that.
I agree with you on that because I feel like if we weren't desensitized by this would be huge fucking news and you would open your mouth. But what do I know? You're so fucking privileged, right? Because the people who sit there and be like, oh, I don't like to get political, I'm not a political person, they say this because right now the politics that are happening benefit and work for them.